Hello everybody, this is TechNolli, and today I've got an update on this ASRock X570 Tachi. And we've done this before in a build, this particular motherboard, but right there, we've got Big Sur. So I wanted to show you guys on the new OpenCore 0.6.4, and I'm going to show you the complete method to get your Ryzens up and running, and so you can use Big Sur. So here it is. This is a nice board. You guys have seen this board before. Super high-end board. Very expensive board, but it's really nice. Really nice. Very stable. So if you've got this board, or you want to get this board, then the EFI that I'm making for this one will work on yours. And I'll have that EFI on the TechNolli.com website. Also guys, I wanted to show you that the NVIDIA GT710 graphics card is still supported in Big Sur. So here it is. Let me show you this real quick. Right there it is. NVIDIA GeForce GT 710 2GB. So if you're looking for a cheap card just to run your system, maybe you're using this for, you know, your DAW, audio music production, then you can still get one of these cards, and they're only $55 on Amazon. So you can get a nice cheap card, but it works great. It's plug and play, so you'll be ready to go. All right. So let's get started. Let me show you how this thing works. All right, here we are on the desktop, guys, and we've got, of course, macOS Big Sur. And what we want to do is, to make your life so much easier, is download this OC Gen X, okay? So we'll just go over to the internet and type in OC Gen X. Okay, and you're going to come up with two searches here. What we want is the app, okay? So let's click on this one, and you'll see the app right here. If you click on the other one, you're just downloading all of the machine, or all the language files, if you wanted to edit it yourself or something like that. But what we want is just the simple app. So we'll just download it here, unzip it, and then just stick it on. Now, the next thing that I always do is I go to the internet and I look up my model of motherboard. So this is the ASRock X570, and it is that one right there. And I go to the ASRock site, and what am I looking for? I am looking for what Ethernet LAN chip they're using. So I just scroll down here, and I get to here, and they're using the i211, okay? Now, what we need to do then is simply go back over here to the OC Gen X, right-click and open, and then click open. And this does all of the work for you, just about. Most of it, 90% of it. So we are on a Ryzen system, so I'm going to click on Ryzen. And then I need to put in the text that we're going to need, okay? So by default, they include these two because they're always required. Virtual SMC plugins, we don't need for Ryzen. Graphics, we always need whatever green. And for audio, yes, we need Apple ALC. And then Ethernet, and this is what I was talking about. The small tree 82576 is the i211 chipset. So this is the one we want to choose. Under USB, we don't need to worry about it. Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, this is if you were going to use a non-supported macOS Wi-Fi card. So we're not going to do that. Now this motherboard, you can swap out the little M.2 card on the motherboard for the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. You can swap it out with one right here, a picture, and I'll have a link in the description of the card that you can get to put in this, and then you can have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth built into the motherboard, which is very cool. Okay, let's go to firmware drivers, and we need those. SM BIOS on Ryzen's, we're still using iMac Pro 1,1. So we just put that in there. And then additional boot arguments, I'm not going to put any in. So then we just generate the EFI. And there it is, guys, with just about everything in it we need. All the text. Okay, is that beautiful? Now, what we don't have is our SSDTs. Okay, so let's go over, we can close this out. Let's go over to the website, OpenCore website, right here. And we are using version 0.6.4. Get started, and we're going to go down here to configs, and we're going to choose AMD desktop and then Ryzen. Okay, so in here we're going to find out right here under ACPI what SSDTs we need. Now for this motherboard, because it's an X570, the only one we need is this one right here. This one right here, this SPUR, is for B550 and A520 motherboards. So we don't need this one, but we do need this. So I'm going to click on it and then go over here to pre-built SSDTs. And I'll go back over here to AMD SSDTs. And there it is. And click on this and just download it. How wonderful is that? Amazing. All right, so let's go over here to the ACPI folder of our EFI and go to our downloads, and let's grab this. Let's copy this and put it in here. And we are done with ACPI. Everything else is ready to go, all right? So the next thing we need to do, and if you want, it's pretty simple, just run over to my website right here, TechNolli.com, and just go here where it says more and click downloads, and all of the links for stuff we always need is here. So we're going to need proper tree, so I'll download that, and we're going to need, while I'm here, this right here, Mount EFI, so we'll download that one. Okay. All right. So let's go back to the guide. And I always scoot these over. If you've watched any of my other videos, you know I do this. We'll go here to downloads. And we'll go to proper tree. And then right click and open propertree.command. And then click open. All right. There it is. I'll just minimize all this stuff. And then we'll go file, open, to the desktop, to our EFI folder, which we have right here that we just made, OC config.plist, and click open. All right, so what we're going to do is compare the guide to our config.plist to make sure everything is correct. The first thing we need to do is inject all of the paths to the SSDTs, to the text, and to the drivers. So to do that, they make it very simple. You just go here to File and do OC Snapshot, and it's going to choose the OC folder, and then click on Choose, and it just injected all of our different texts, our SSDTs, and drivers. Okay. Now, while you're here, go ahead and do an OC clean snapshot just to make sure everything is turned on and in its proper order. Okay, so we're done with this. So we can go up here and go to the next thing that we want to check out. So we're going to come right here to Booter, and then we're going to be here under Quirks, right here. Now, devirtualize MIMO. It says no. Note, TRX40 requires this flag. So if you're working on a Threadripper X40 motherboard, then you would need to turn this on. Okay, so we're going to go over here and make sure it's set to false, which is no. And it is, so that's correct. Enable write protector, no, and that is right here, and that's correct. Rebuild Apple memory map set to, which is down here, is set to true. Now this one can be tricky, and a lot of guys will get stuck on a boot kernel panic if this is set one way or the other. So if you start booting your system and you come up with a PCI configuration start and it's stuck right there, then you may want to change this setting here from true to false or false to true. Now I know on this one, it says right here, newer BIOS versions of X570 also require this to be turned off. So even though it says yes here, I'm going to turn it off. Because whenever you're doing a Hackintosh, make sure you update your BIOS to the latest version of the BIOS, okay? If you're running a year-old BIOS in your motherboard you just picked up off of Amazon or something, then it may require this to be turned on. And you always want to have the latest version of the BIOS, okay? So, sync runtime permissions, and it is set correctly to true. Now, if you want more info about what these things do, you can click right here, and it will tell you what each one of these things do, which is very interesting. These guys are truly amazing. Okay, under device properties, we're not going to add or take away anything. So we're going to come down here to kernel. Now, this is the toughest part of doing a Ryzen system. All right, so what they're going to want us to do is they're going to want us to do a large patch, okay? But before we do that, we'll just go ahead and make sure under emulate that this quirk, dummy power management, is set to true. So let's look for that real quick. Right there's emulate, and it's set to false. So I'm going to set it to true. All right. Now let's come down here a little bit, and this is where we get the patch. So we'll click on this, and then we'll click on patches.plist, set this to raw, and then I want you to go over here to Spotlight and type in text edit so we can bring up a text editor. Make sure that you set the format to plain text. Go back here, select all and copy, and then just paste all of that into here. And then what I'm going to do is save. I'm going to save this to my desktop. And I'm going to call it patches.plist. And I'm going to turn off this extension over right here. So we'll turn that off, and we just want it to be like that. All right, so there is my patches. Okay, let's go back to the guide. And what it wants us to do is go up here to kernel. All right, so let's go back up here to where it says kernel, so we know we're in the right place. And then come down and look for patch. And there it is. So I want you to highlight that line, right-click, and remove patch and children. All right. Now, let's go over here to File, Open, and we're going to open up on the desktop my patches plist. All right, so there it is. So now I'm going to go back up here to kernel, highlight it. I'm going to highlight patch. I'm going to right-click and copy. And then I'm going to come over here, right-click, and paste. Okay. We just put all of these patches into our config.plist, which is required for Ryzen. All right. So we're done with that. Now let's get to the next set of quirks. All right. So we're here at kernel, and we've got our quirks right here. Our quirks. So we'll come down here. Everything is fine if it's not mentioned here. We're just going to verify that panic no kex dump is true, and they are power timeout, and our XHCI port limit is set to true. So we're good. Okay, so miscellaneous, let's go down here, and we'll just make sure these settings are the same. So we'll go way past all of these patches, all the way down till we see miscellaneous, and here they are. Okay, so I'm going to set Apple debug to true. Don't need to, but I'm going to. And I'm not going to change the target to 67. You only want to change it to 67 if you want to see the boot text. Okay, so what happens if you set this to 67? Then it's going to give you a boot log every time you boot your computer and put it in your EFI. And it's good for finding out if you've got issues. But I don't want to have that boot log, and I know this is working, so I'm going to set it to 3. All right, so we'll come down here to allow NVRAM, and everything here is set properly. So let's scoot on down to NVRAM right here, and we want to go to the boot args. Okay, boot args are right here. So there's just a couple more I need to put in here. And I'm going to go ahead and put in debug. So I'll right click, copy, and then double click. Make sure there's a space between each boot argument and paste it in. Put a space. I also need this ALC ID for my audio, and we'll double click and paste it. Okay, now if I'm running a 5000 series graphics card, then I need to put in this boot argument also right here for RX 5000. I'm not running one, so I'm okay. But if you've got a 5500, a 5600, a 5700, you're going to need to add this boot argument, or you're going to get a black screen when you try to boot. Okay, so there we go. All right, next thing I want to check is the language of my system. And right here, preferred language. So for English, we need to change this to right here, ENUS:0. Right now it's set to Russian. So the first thing you want to do is change this to string, and then double click and type in EN-US:0 if you want English. If you don't want English, you click here for different languages. Okay, right here, delete. We want to make sure that write flash is set to true, and it is. Platform info. We talked about this earlier when we were making the EFI using OC Gen X. And if we go down here, we see iMac Pro 1,1. So let's go down here, and we do have it set right. That's it. That's all we need to do for now. Everything else is by default fine. And right down here at the bottom, you can see what your BIOS settings should be for a Ryzen motherboard. Very important. If you skip this, you're never going to get it to boot. You have to make sure that these things are set right. Now, right here it says enable above 4G decoding. I have found that disabling above 4G decoding works on most all motherboards. You can experiment. We do have this boot argument in there, so you can experiment both ways. All right, so we're done. We go over here to File and Save, and our EFI folder is ready to go. The next thing I want to do is I want to, I'll go ahead and close this for right now. I want to have a 16 gigabyte minimum USB stick. Okay, So I'm going to put one in. Okay, and there it is. So I am going to, we have to format this. So we're going to make and install macOS Big Sur vanilla USB stick. So what we're going to do is go over here to Utilities, and we're going to format our USB stick. So we'll go to Disk Utility, and we'll come over here and make sure we click on this down arrow to view all devices. Okay, so there we go. Here is my USB stick. Come over here and click Erase. And I'm just going to call this USB. And I'm going to set this to macOS Extended Journal and GUID Partition Map. Click Erase. Okay, click Done. All right. Now, we need to put the Big Sur on this USB stick, like I said, and make it a bootable drive. And this is a bootable drive if you were going to install Big Sur on your Mac computer. It's the same process. One thing we have to make sure is that we have the Big Sur app in our applications folder. And how do you get that? If you don't own a Mac, or you're borrowing somebody's Mac, or you've got a sister that's got a Mac, you need to download this from the Apple Store. Okay? If you download this from the Apple Store, it's going to put it into applications, and then we can continue making the stick. So make sure you have it downloaded. It's here. And then we're going to go over here to the web and type in make a Mac USB boot drive. How to create an installer. We'll come down here and we've got Big Sur. So we want to copy this text all the way until the / past volumes. Copy that. And I'll go up here to Spotlight, type in terminal. And then I'm going to right click and paste that text into there. Hit the right arrow key and type in USB, which is what I named our vanilla boot drive. Hit enter, put in the password. Now sometimes when you type in your password, after you type in your password, nothing comes up. And you just have to wait sometimes. It'll just take like a minute for it to come up and say, you know, hit Y to continue. So if you get stuck right there and you think, oh my God, it's stuck, it's not going anywhere, just wait for a while and let it do its thing. So now we can type in Y for yes and hit enter, and it is making our USB vanilla boot drive. So just say okay to this, and no, I don't want it to be my time machine. So when this is all done, we'll come back and we'll have our install macOS Big Sur ready to go, and we can continue. All right, be right back. Okay, so now we have our install macOS Big Sur. So let's go back to our downloads, and we're going to use this program called Mount EFI. So we'll double click, right click on Mount EFI, .command and open, and then open. And what we need to do is we need to get to the hidden EFI partition on the USB stick. And that is where our EFI folder goes. So let's go over here and we'll select number 2, which is my USB stick. Put in our password, and there is the EFI hidden partition. So we just drag this folder into here, and we are ready to go. We can go into the BIOS, set the BIOS up, and start installing the Mac OS. All right, let's get into the BIOS. Okay, just like all motherboards, we're going to start tapping the delete key to get into the BIOS. Okay, now on this particular ASRock board, I have updated to the latest version, the latest BIOS version, which is right here, 3.61. It had P.3.20 on it, so it was like over a year old. And this motherboard, I just got it. So update your BIOS. Always want to do that. Now let's go over here, use the arrow keys. It's easier than using the mouse. And I'm going to go down here to load XPM settings. Now by default, this will come like this. It'll be set to auto. So it won't see my 3200 speed DDR4 RAM. So I want to set this to profile 1. Okay. Now let's go to advanced. And I'll show you under each one of these, but on Ryzen boards, there's really not too much that you have to change. Okay, so CPU configuration on this ASRock, there's nothing that I need to do. PCI configuration, there's my above 4G decoding, and I disabled it. We'll go to onboard devices and configuration, and we just want to make sure that everything is enabled, and you can leave this by default. Storage configuration, we want to make sure we have our SATA controller set to AHCI, and that's all we need to do there. ACPI you can leave by default. AMI graphic output, there's nothing to mess with there. Trusted computing, nothing. AMD PBS, and we can see down here we do have Thunderbolt, and we can choose to enable it or disable it. I'm going to leave it disabled for now. Overclocking, you know what that is, and you can play with that a little bit if you want. Severe overclocking or extreme overclocking on Hackintoshes will tend to crash. But a little overclocking, I've done it, and it works fine. AMD CBS, there's nothing in here to mess with. So let's go over to, we don't need to mess with tool. The hardware monitor, we don't need to. Security, there's nothing in here to worry about. We'll go to boot. And right here, we want to make sure fast boot is disabled. And we want to make sure CSM support is disabled. A lot of guys don't see this one. They set it to enable, and their system won't boot. So you got to disable CSM. All right, so we'll just go over here to exit, save changes, and exit. Now, I already have Big Sur installed on this hard drive. So on ASRock, to get to the boot menu, the motherboard boot menu, you press F11. So I'm going to save changes, and then I'm going to start tapping the F11 key because I want to make sure that I'm booting from my boot stick that I just made. F11, I'm tapping it, tapping it, tapping it. Okay, and we should be, there we go. So I'm going to choose this OpenCore down here. This OpenCore is the EFI on my Kingston hard drive, or SSD. So I'm going to go down here to this one, hit enter. Sometimes it'll come up as partition 1, but you want to make sure you're on the USB stick. All right, so if you have nothing on your hard drive, if it's a brand new drive, then you won't see anything here except install macOS, Big Sur external, and reset NVRAM. If you've got a drive that has something on it, then you may come up with a window like this. Main thing is that I want to choose on my computer right here, number 2, which is install macOS Big Sur external, which is my USB stick. So I'll hit enter. Now to get to these different things, or to stop this menu from auto starting, you have to hit an arrow key, up or down arrow key. That will stop the menu so you can take your time and make your choice. I'll hit there, and away we go. So when we come up to the disk utility screen, we'll come back. Okay guys, coming up here. Now I'm going to tell you right now, if you have installed Mojave or Catalina in the past, this is going to take you twice as long. This whole file setup is 12.5 gigabytes as opposed to like Catalina, which is 8 gigabytes. So it's a much bigger file. It reboots quite often. So it is a different setup. It's just different. So you're going to have to bear with me and watch these different screens because they are different. Okay. So here we go. Just a new look. and we'll go to Disk Utility, click Continue. We want to make sure we click this down arrow and Show All Devices. Okay, now I can see my Kingston, and I'm going to click Erase, and I'm just going to call it Mac OS, and I want APFS, and I want GUID partition map. So where I'm good there, click Erase. Okay, we're done. Now I'll just come over here and click the little red X and install macOS Big Sur. Click Continue, Continue, Agree, and Agree. Choose your macOS or whatever you called your hard drive, choose that one, and click Continue. Now this says 16 minutes. I think it gets down to about, I don't know, 13 minutes or something like that, and it'll reboot. But we'll come back when it reboots, and I'm going to show you each screen. All right? Okay, so this one got to 12 minutes remaining, and it rebooted. So somewhere around 13, 12, something like that on these new Big Sur systems. So we're going to come back up, and I'm going to show you the boot menu. And you're going to see what it defaults to. Okay, so it defaulted to, right here, macOS installer. So you could just let this go. You don't need to worry about clicking anything or doing anything. But I wanted to show you the screen. macOS installer is what we want it to choose. If it chooses something else, then use your arrow keys to choose macOS installer and just hit enter. And we will continue with the install. Okay, we're back up to the logo again, Apple logo. And this is the longest process right here, this stretch to get clear across. And it'll come up here and tell you how many minutes remaining and all that, and it'll kind of give you an idea. Okay, so 29 minutes remaining. And that's probably about right. All right. So there we go, 19 minutes remaining, and that is like watching paint dry. But we got it. It's going to come up again, and we need to continue the install. So we'll come up here to the picker. And by default, it chooses macOS installer. So we'll just continue on with it, guys. We got to get through this. But it is a long process. Then finally, it continues on and reboots. So we're on reboot number 3 or 4. I lose track. Catalina is usually 3. Okay, now it comes up and it's picking by default Mac OS, which is what we named our hard drive. So let's continue. All right, we're back up to the Apple logo again. That's always a good sign. And let's just see what happens. All right, we got another reboot. Let's see what the picker says. And of course, it chooses the name of the hard drive again. So that's good. All right. This is looking interesting. There we go, guys. So it's about 5 reboots. So nothing like Mojave or Catalina. All right, so let's just go through here. We'll just pick US if I can get to it. There we go. Continue. And I'll continue. And not now. Accessibility. Okay, continue. I'm not doing migration assistant, so I'll just say not now. And you do not want to sign in with your Apple ID yet, okay? So we're going to skip or set up later and then skip. And then agree and agree. And then just give it a name and a password. All right, continue. And I'll do customize setups here so I can enable location services, but I'll turn off analytics. Continue. Set up later. I don't want Siri, so I'll continue. And you can choose light or dark mode. Here's light mode, dark mode, or auto, depending on time of day. So we'll just continue. And here we go. Tell it what kind of keyboard we have. And we're done, guys. Isn't that great? Now, before we get too excited, we have to transfer our EFI folder from our USB hidden partition, EFI partition, to our hidden EFI partition on our macOS drive. So let's go over here to TechNolli again. Go to the web, TechNolli.com, and we'll just download those files we need. Downloads, and we're going to need the Mount EFI again, so we'll download that. Okay, download that, allow, and I'm going to grab proper tree, so we'll download this. And to change our or add new serial numbers, we're going to grab GenSM BIOS and download that. Okay, so let's close out Safari. And we'll go over here to downloads. The first thing I want to do is Mount EFI. So I'll double click, right click on mountefi.command and open. Open. And say OK. I want to choose number 1, which is my stick. Put in my password. And I also want to choose number 3, which is my SSD. So I'll hit number 3 and hit enter. Okay, so right here is my EFI hidden partition on my actual new Hackintosh. And here is the hidden EFI partition with the EFI folder. I drag it into my EFI hidden partition on my macOS. Okay, close that out. Close that out. I'm going to go ahead and eject the stick. Eject all. So that ejects the macOS Big Sur and the EFI. Okay, and then I'll come back over here and I want to choose GenSM BIOS Master. So right click on GenSMBIOS.command and click open. Click open. Choose number 1. And then hit enter. And now choose number 2. And it wants to know where is the config.plist. Okay. So we go over here to our hidden partition on our hard drive, the EFI, OC, and just drag the config.plist over here and hit enter. So now it knows where it is. And then we're going to generate number 3, SM BIOS. So we'll click that. And what it wants to know here is, what is the product name of this Mac? And if you remember, it's called an iMac Pro 1,1, and then hit enter. And it just built those serial numbers and UUID number. Hit enter again, and we are done with that. Okay, now you want to get rid of all of that text when you're booting up the system, now that we have the system up and running properly. So we'll go out to Proper Tree, right-click on propertree.command and open. Open. And we'll go to File, Open. And then we want to find our EFI hidden partition, EFI folder, OC, config.plist, and click Open. All right, then we can just go down until we see NVRAM. So I'm just going to hit these arrows to minimize them. Here's NVRAM, and here's boot arguments. All I need to do to get rid of the text is get rid of this -V. So I'll just go over here and get rid of it, hit enter, and then go up here to File and Save. So now when we reboot, which I'll do right now, it'll be a clean reboot. Make sure you pull out your USB stick, and it will do everything automatically. There we go. Just like a real Mac. Now, if you want that little picker screen to go away, you can go into your config.plist and look for, under miscellaneous, it's a line called timeout, and you could set that to 1, and it'll just blink and then go. Put in my password, and now we have Big Sur on our Ryzentosh. All right, this is a Ryzen 5 3600 CPU, which still is an awesome processor. We will be doing, guys, the 5000 series, the new Ryzens, as soon as I can get them. Waiting to get them in. Of course, they're sold out everywhere. They got like a few in the stores, and they were gone instantly. So I am on a program where I will be notified when they come back into stock at different stores and different online guys. And we'll get one in here, and we'll do some benchmarks on those new ones. Okay, so thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it. Please like and subscribe. And I thank all of my people for watching my videos. I certainly do appreciate it very much. I appreciate you supporting the channel. Okay, we'll see you on the next one.